I texted you before we got rolling, and I was like, hey, Jake, going to go for about 30-ish. What do you want to make sure we hit on? And you responded with 2 words. Arch hype. So I want to give you the floor. I want to surrender the mic to you. I want you to wax poetic because I don't know which way we're going with this, but I want to give it to you and just let you talk your cash a little bit here.
Well, first off, I understand how this business works, right? I mean, controversial, hot takes, they're what's going to move the needle. I understand that. Now, I have some controversial takes, but I think, when you look at some of these quarterback rankings and people are putting Arch Manning at 2, like ahead of guys like Garrett Nussmeier, and even ahead of guys like Marcel Reed, I think, at A&M. It blows my mind. I know why, because his last name's Manning, and none of this is Arch's fault. Arch just shows up to work trying to be the best version of himself. So I'm not saying this in any way reflects who Arch Manning is. But to me, you don't have enough information to be able to say that. It's like we've seen the trailer for the Arch Manning movie. Now, the trailer's been pretty good. But I've seen pretty good trailers, and the movie ended up falling flat. I've seen pretty good trailers, and the movie ended up being a hit, right, and grossing hundreds of millions of dollars. And I'm not saying he won't be. But to me, when you start putting Arch Manning with what we know now as your number 2 or number 1 or really top 5 returning quarterbacks through all classes, not newcomers, but through all classes, it just reminds me of the guys out in Vegas who have the cups with the ball and they make you try and figure out which one is in it. I think it's a parlor trick. So will he end up living up to the hype? I hope so for him. It's going to be almost impossible because that's how high the hype train is on him because his last name's Manning and he's playing at a place like Texas. But I don't hear enough people talking about Damon Williams Jr. I don't hear enough people talking about Marcel Reed. We talk Lenoris, we talk DJ Lagway. It's just, to me, this is the parlor trick of off-season, quote-unquote, 2025, is let's put Arch Manning as our number 2 quarterback with not enough information and just watch everybody just, lose their minds like Heath Ledger said when he was the Joker. So I'm trusting, but I got to verify. And at the end of the day, I think it's a trick. So I'm not going to do that. He could end up being that good. We'll see. But it's a bridge too far for me, man.
And that's the tricky part about all of it is just what you said. The last name Manning has led to such extreme territory that you have to fall on either side of it. Like if you don't think Arch Manning is going to be awesome, you're a hater. Or if you don't think he's going to be great at Texas, you don't know ball. And I think what you're saying is exactly right, where the truth, I think, could be somewhere in the middle of he wins the Heisman Trophy or the guy's a complete bust because of his last name. I think a lot of what excites me about Arch Manning in Texas in general, like outside of the whole rankings conversation, to me, Jake, I'm sitting here saying, even if he's just like as good as Quinn Ewers was, or does what he did for that offense under Quinn Ewers, like if he can just deliver the football to the right place, they run the ball well, they play good defense, like that to me is the big sell with Texas. I'm looking at Texas outside of that first game. I just need Arch to be ready to roll by November when we go to Georgia, when we play A&M in the season finale. Like if Arch is playing like a second-year starter at that point in time, because he will have played close double-digit games at that point in time, then we can talk about Texas being a team to go compete for and win national championships. That's the big ingredient for me, is his development from game 1 up until and through November.
100%. That's right on the money. And to your point, the answer is probably going to be somewhere in the middle because you are operating on both fringes of the spectrum. Either he's Superman or he's Stephen Hawking. That when you operate on both ends of that spectrum, the answer is probably going to be in the middle. And the truth is, with young quarterbacks, even young quarterbacks that have a season under their belt, or some of a season, or even a little bit of a season, there are going to be growing pains as you develop. And that's in every walk of life for everybody. If you just became the manager at your new job, that first year, there's probably going to be some downs. There's going to be some ups. The question is, how low are the lows with Arch Manning? The question becomes timing. Like you look at a guy like Lenoris Sellers. If his timing and his anticipation improves, if his ability to read rotations of secondaries, right, and intermediate defenders improves, which it should, he's going to be a much better player. But he had to go through some of that, right, to be able to learn from that tape. And when you look at the Texas-Ohio State game, and I've said the same thing about the LSU-Clemson game, not that there's ever truly a win-win. I mean, quality loss is a term I'm not really in love with.
Sure.
But if Texas goes and loses to Ohio State, or Ohio State goes and loses to Texas, that's not going to knock them out of the playoff. Just like if LSU goes and loses at Clemson or vice versa, Clemson loses at home against LSU, right? You still have a long season to go after that. So the Arch Manning that we see in week 5 or week 6, that's going to dictate how far Texas is going to be able to go and how quickly he can interpret information, not just on the field, but in the film room. That's why, JD, I'm so interested. And we've got a Texas preview coming out, and we did a Texas-Ohio State kind of game preview like you guys are doing, and we talked about this. Even though Arch has played some under Sark, going on the road to Ohio State in your first game as the guy, right?
Yeah.
How open is the menu offensively, right? Do you get the whole menu, or do you just have brunch early to see how he's doing and how you're holding up front? That's what I'm intrigued to see, because you know Sark's going to motion to get answers pre-snap. He's going to try and make things as easy as possible for Arch to be able to diagnose, is this man? Is this zone? Are they going to show pressures? Can we out-formation them, whether that's to the field or FIB formation into the boundary? I want to know what you think. Do you think Sark's going to give the whole menu to Arch early and say, listen, we're just going to go give it to him just like if we had Quinn Ewers?
You know, I don't think it'll be full menu. I love what you said. I don't think it'll be, here's the lunch menu. We're going to give you a couple of specials. We'll give you the brunch menu. We'll have bottomless something for you. But I think the thing with Arch that excites me about this first start for him, and the reason why I have maybe higher expectations for him than a Austin Simmons or than any other first-year starting quarterback across college football, is the fact that, Jake, we got to see him play a little bit last year, but also he sat for a full year before last year. Like we haven't seen a true 5-star quarterback sit for 2 years since like pre-portal era, maybe. So what excites me is the fact that he's had some time to learn the system, been under the best quarterback developer, short of what Lincoln Riley in the sport. Lane Kiffin maybe throw in that discussion if he's developing anybody still. I know the portal is a thing that he's using pretty heavily. So like, I love the fact that he's had a chance to grow a little bit in this system. So I wouldn't be all that shocked if they get to Columbus and it's a little bit more wide open than it would be for an Austin Simmons, who I keep going back to is like the best, I think, example of this discussion for first-year quarterbacks in the SEC.
Yeah. I mean, well, we know less about Austin, obviously, than we do about Arch and a lot of these other guys.
Yeah.
Even though he came in against Georgia and, looked like he could spit a couple bars at you in a big moment. Arch is at that point in college where you're starting to go to classes for your major. Right? Like you knocked out all the prereqs. You did the stuff that you just had to handle. You even had a lab last year that involved your major you went to. And I would say you got a B. All right. You showed up, you did your job. They didn't ask you to do too much. You got a B. Well, now you're going to classes for that major. Now we're about to really see if you're going to be an engineer or a doctor or whatever. So that's what I'm interested to see. And it's that growth. And that may be his best weapon, JD. His football IQ is really, really high. Is he smart enough as a new starter to take the check down, to realize you never go broke making a profit, to throw the ball away, and if you take off and you got 4 yards, and not to lower your head every time, right? Now, I understand if it's 3rd and 3 and you got to go get the first down to extend a drive to win a game or to put yourself in a position to win a game, but how mature is he at taking care of his body as well, and then taking what the defense has given him and realizing that 2nd and 6 is a sexy number for offense?
It is. That's true. I mean, like you said, you don't go broke taking a profit and sticking in that thought of he's now taking classes for his major. The entire time now had a really good tutor. Right, Steve Sarkisian might be the best tutor in all of academia when it comes to
Dumbledore, man.
I'm telling you, man, the quips, the one-liners, like this is game tape for your boy right now. So this is impressive, and this is hopefully the audience is taking notes here.